Right, welcome everybody. I've got world-renowned trainer Kevin Barry with me. Thank you so much for joining me, Kevin. How's things?
Adam, my pleasure. Things are very well. We're just getting started in our latest training camp with Joseph Parker and Izu Ugonoh. So, but busy times for us.
Okay, brilliant. Well, talking about the main man there, Joseph Parker. Everyone's talking about him at the moment. You're still waiting on the WBO to work out if they want to get Joseph and Andy Ruiz Jr. to fight for the WBO title. Is that where we are at the moment?
We're exploring many options right at the moment, and the WBO fight with Andy Ruiz is, obviously at the top of our list.
Yeah.
We're very confident that that will happen, but we're also well aware the politics of boxing make it very interesting and very challenging at times, and you can never really get too far ahead of yourself until you have a signed contract.
Mm. So how do you deal with this as a trainer? You say you're there in Las Vegas at the moment. Do you just try and keep your fighters fight ready all the time?
Well, we just finished fighting 2 weeks ago. Both my guys are in very good shape. Have had a little time off, a little bit of downtime. We're back into the gym yesterday. So, they haven't really lost a lot of condition or anything like that. At the moment, it's just doing generic training. We're doing our strength work. We're doing our skill work. We're doing bag work. The boys are doing massage, yoga, neuromuscular work, just the usual routine that we have while we're waiting to finalise fights for both of them coming up at the end of the year.
Okay, and you talk about exploring many different options for Joseph Parker there. Obviously, a lot of people, well, Eddie Hearn said Joseph Parker was the front runner to fight Anthony Joshua at the end of November. Obviously, things have changed a bit there. Is that still an option for you?
Well, that changed very fast, didn't it? One minute we were the flavour of the month, and then all of a sudden, Joe looked devastating against Dimitrenko, putting him down 4 times, and we weren't so popular anymore.
Very interesting.
We know that Joseph Parker and Anthony Joshua is a fight that I think boxing fans and sporting fans want to see, and it's a fight that will happen. It's probably it's fair to say it's not going to happen this year. It's a fight that will happen sometime in 2017, and hopefully both guys will have belts and both guys will be undefeated, and it'll be a major spectacle when that fight does take place. But 2 young guys who have both have mirrored each other over the last 3-4 years. 2 young, strong, powerful, fast, very popular fighters, both very athletic, and both have exciting styles. So I think it's a fight that the longer we leave that fight, the bigger it's going to become.
Well, one more thing on the Anthony Joshua fight you were talking about there. So Eddie Hearn said a couple of weeks before he fought Dimitrenko, I actually was involved in a show, and we all agreed that it was very unlikely Joseph Parker would fight Anthony Joshua due to, one, he had his fight with Dimitrenko, and having 2 fights back to back very quickly, and it'd be the biggest fight of his career. Were you ever considering taking the fight in November, especially when you had this Dimitrenko fight lined up?
We were definitely looking at fighting on the November 26th card when that was in place.
Yeah.
And we had just done 2 very good training camps. We were very well prepared, and if they had wanted the fight at that time, we were prepared to step into the ring with Anthony. We made that quite clear to a lot of people. We also said at the time that if it's not Joshua and he fights someone else, we'll fight David Price.
Yeah, I was going to come on to that. Yeah.
So we were very, very serious about fighting on November 26th. But in this crazy, very fast-changing world of professional boxing, now we've got an Andy Ruiz opportunity presenting itself. We also have, it's very funny, Joe's #1 in the world with the WBO. Klitschko is #2, and as you're well aware, that the Joshua Klitschko fight is by no means a done deal.
No, well, yeah, there's been some news coming out today that due to the WBA, Vladimir Klitschko wants that WBA belt. He wanted the WBO belt as well, but that's looking less and less likely because it's already kind of tied up with you guys. In terms of, I spoke to Andy Ruiz Jr. the other day. It's obviously a fight both camps really want, especially for the WBO title. What do you make of Andy Ruiz Jr. as an opponent for Joseph Parker?
Look, Andy's a very interesting fighter, a very exciting fighter, a fighter who I actually spent a bit of time with Andy before I started working with Joseph Parker.
Oh, right.
And at one stage, I was in negotiations with his manager to possibly train Andy. And I really liked the power. I liked the explosiveness of Andy. I like the fact that he's got much better boxing skills than what people give him credit for. He also has very fast hands for a guy that doesn't look like he would have fast hands.
Very true.
He pulls the trigger very fast. Now, Andy was a very good amateur. He's undefeated as a professional in 29 fights. So you know he's doing things right. He's a guy that, he's had a few weight issues over the years. There's been a lot of good fighters who have had weight issues. So that's his Achilles heel. But Andy's a fighter that I have a lot of respect for, and the old cliche, styles make fights. And when you look at Joseph Parker's style, you look at Andy Ruiz's style, you just know that is going to be a highly exciting fight. Two guys that come forward, two guys that throw a lot of punches. Joe's obviously got 3 or 4 inches on Andy in height. They've got similar hand speed. They both like to throw a lot of punches. I think it's a great, exciting fight.
And there's been a lot of talk about this fight being in New Zealand. From what I've been listening to and reading, that's very important to Joseph and all the boxing fans in New Zealand to get a world heavyweight title fight in New Zealand.
Well, it's history making. We've never had a heavyweight world title fight in New Zealand, and we've never had a New Zealand or Samoan heavyweight world champion. And for that case, there's never been a Mexican heavyweight world champion. Yeah. So somebody, if this fight does eventuate, somebody's going to make history. It's very important for us, and we're very, very keen to try and make this fight in New Zealand. We've had good discussions with Bob Arum and Top Rank. We've offered Andy a lot more money than what he's been paid before, and this was one of the fights that was possible for us to stage down there. Obviously, a Joshua fight, a Klitschko fight, anything like that would be out of our price range down there, and just the geography of where New Zealand is would make it very, very difficult. So, when this opportunity presented itself with the WBO, we've jumped in with all our power.
Very interesting. Well, yeah, it seems to be. Obviously, I'm a long way away from New Zealand, but from where I'm sitting, people are very excited about Joseph Parker. He seems to be like one of the main sporting stars in New Zealand at the moment, in a country that's sort of depicted by rugby.
Yeah, no, Joe has a huge following in New Zealand. In fact, one thing we said about when we went on this journey a little over 4 years ago was to make Joe the biggest sporting star in New Zealand, and he's been fighting on pay-per-view since his 5th fight. We've had an enormous amount of media behind Joe. Sure, most of his fights have been in New Zealand, and because of that, he is a huge star down there. He's on TV commercials. He's got a lot of sponsors. There's not too many people in New Zealand who don't know who Joseph Parker is. Now, I go back to 2000 when I had David Tua fighting Lennox Lewis for the heavyweight championship of the world in the Mandalay Bay. Now, at that particular stage, Tua was into his 8th year as a professional, and that fight was the highest watched sporting event in New Zealand television history.
Wow.
It has only since been passed by one other sporting occasion, when the All Blacks recently won the World Cup, the final match.
Yeah.
So it just shows you New Zealanders love their fighters. They love their professional boxing. We've got a rich tradition in it. There's been a lot of good Samoan fighters come out of New Zealand over the years, and the public have really have gotten behind Joe Parker and have been on this journey with him. And it's happened fast. It's happened in 4 years. So it's a really exciting time for not only professional boxing in New Zealand, but for the sporting public in New Zealand.
I couldn't agree more. What effect has this had on Joseph's sort of resurgence in boxing? What sort of effect has this had on younger people getting involved in boxing?
Well, we recently, I ran a little story in New Zealand that I was looking for the next Joseph Parker, and the response that came from that was massive. I had people not only from New Zealand but from various countries around the world, sending me videos, sending me resumes. I have a number of boys in Australia at the moment who I'm looking at, who I think are very exciting, young guys that our company is going to put resources behind and try and develop. And we want to make this, we don't want to have to wait another 16 years as we have done since David Tua to get a fighter back to the heavyweight championship of the world.
Do you think there's some talent out there?
There is some massive talent in New Zealand, Australia, and the South Pacific. You're talking about some very powerful, explosive athletes. And you've only got to look at, what the Polynesian athletes have done in rugby and rugby league. We have huge talent. Yeah,
well, in rugby, it's a conveyor belt of talent, isn't it? For such a small amount of people, it's astonishing. Let's move on to the other heavyweight who's being talked about at the moment, Izu Ugonoh, former world kickboxing champion. Recently had a very good win. Tell me a little bit about this guy. He's a Polish national with Nigerian parents. It's not the most familiar mix you have out there, but a lot of people are very excited about this guy.
Well, let me tell you this, Adam. Izu Ugonoh, as you mentioned, Nigerian parents, born in Poland, lives in Las Vegas and fights in New Zealand. Now, is that an unlikely scenario?
Yeah, you couldn't make that up, could you? So
no, you couldn't. And I tell you what, it makes me laugh. It makes Izu laugh, and it makes our team at Duco Events laugh. But look, Izu Ugonoh is, I believe, is the sleeper of the heavyweight division. He is an ultra-talented fighter. He is a tremendous athlete. I have had Izu with me for a little over 2 years. Along with Joseph Parker, Izu lives in my house. So, he's here 24/7. I've had him fighting in New Zealand 8 times in the last 2 years. We had a little break at the beginning of this year where he was dancing with the stars in Poland. And being the athlete that he is, he got down to the last 3. He was anything he touches, he makes a success of. He's intelligent. He was as you mentioned, world champion kickboxer. He played top level soccer. He actually looked like a professional dancer in Dancing with the Stars, and he is turning into a tremendous professional fighter who's now really capturing the attention of a lot of people. This guy has just got better and better. He's 6'5". He has an 84-inch reach. He's got incredibly long arms. His hand speed and foot speed is something that we've worked on over the last 2 years, and I think in the last fight against Gregory Tony, a proven, durable guy who'd been around and who everyone said to me, this will be a good test for Izu. And I looked at it and I respect Gregory Tony, but in my mind before the fight, I knew Izu would just destroy him. And of course, the very first right hand he threw in the fight, he broke his nose. It was the end of the round. The next round, he just took him apart, put him down again, and hit him with a body shot and popped a rib. You know, Izu Ugonoh was, I believe, the best body puncher in the heavyweight division.
In fact, yeah, a lot of people agree with you. How did this whole relationship start? How did he come from kickboxing to boxing and then to you?
Well, it's when I first met Izu, I was taking Joseph Parker around. This is early days with Joe, and I was taking him around various gyms here in Las Vegas, sparring every heavyweight that we could get in the ring with. And I heard one day that Kenny Adams, one of the well-known trainers here in Vegas, had an African boy in his gym, and we went down and, you know, Joe and Izu met and we sparred, and the sparring was so competitive and so good. And this is when Izu was like 9-0. He hadn't fought for a couple of years. He'd actually started as a cruiserweight, but was you know, developing into a heavyweight. And he gave Joe such good, solid work. And I said to Joe, God, we've got to go back and get more of that. And so we ended up building a relationship. And then the Izu at the time was with a manager in Vegas that was sort of shopping him around. He went to 6 different trainers. Nothing really gelled. And then they asked me after a period of about 4 months, would I be interested, because they saw the relationship that Joe and I had. They saw the way that the chemistry, what I was doing with them, and they said, would you be interested in having a look at Izu? And you know, it was a very important decision for me at the time, because the chemistry I had here in my house with Joe was tremendous. I didn't want to bring, you know, somebody else into this environment if I thought it was going to be the wrong person. And so I thought about it long and hard, and I had a couple of discussions with Joe, and we put a plan in place. I picked up half of the management with Izu with this other character, and I took him down to New Zealand for a fight, and it was like a bit of a it was a bit of a gamble for a start. We were going to see, it was a trial. We'd see how it worked. It was the end of 2014. It was an easy fight for Izu. I felt good with having him in the house. I sent him back to Poland. We regrouped in 2015. I took him down there 5 times, and I actually believe that having Joseph Parker, having Izu Ugonoh as a training partner, a sparring partner over the last 2 years has made both fighters so much better. Okay. And I attribute a lot of Joe's development to having a world-class guy like Izu Ugonoh as a training partner. Okay. So we've Joe's been our guy, and he's the guy that we've been making all the noise with. He's the one that we've moved up the rankings of the WBO, IBF, WBC. He's picked up 7 or 8 belts in the last 4 years. But Izu now has he's got three regional belts. He's in the world rankings with the WBO and the IBF. He's a guy that in 2017 is going to really break out on the world heavyweight scene. As a fighter, I can promise you that we're going to be seeing a lot more of.
Oh, fantastic. It's good to hear a lot of people are talking about him now, which is great to hear. It's a very interesting story as well. So brilliant. Finally, I wanted to ask you how, you've worked with loads of world champions and great fighters. How does Joseph Parker compare to all the people you've worked with before?
Well, one thing I'll say about Joe, his work ethic is tremendous. He is as good of a trainer as anyone I've ever worked with. He has phenomenal hand speed. I've never seen another heavyweight in the world punch with the blinding speed that Joseph Parker has. It's a God-given talent that he has, and it's something that separates him and makes him different from the rest. He's a great kid who I love like a son. He fits into my house like one of the family. My wife loves him. My 21-year-old son Taylor, who works for me and works in the corner with Joe and Izu. You know, him and Joe are best mates. He's just a talented young man who's getting better and better and better all the time. And we are a long way from reaching the finished product with Joseph Parker. And I could say the same thing about Izu Ugonoh. You know, this guy, his skill set has developed so much in the last 2 years. I look to where he is now compared to where he was when he first came to me, and Izu is honestly a beast.
Mm. Fantastic. Well, it sounds very exciting. You're working with two great heavyweights, and it's been a real pleasure to have you on. I'm very excited to see what's going to happen with the heavyweight division. Obviously, Tyson Fury's throwing a few spanners into the works, but we won't get into that because I've been talking about it on every single interview I've done. But it's been amazing to talk.
Adam, I just want to drop this down. I'm also working with Umar Salamov, the IBO world champion.
Oh, of course you are. What's going on with him at the moment?
Well, he's on his way back here to me very shortly, and he will take another bedroom in my house.
Yeah, so you adopt all these fighters and get them to come and live with you, which is very nice of you. But when's has he got a fight coming soon? What's your ideal plan for him?
Well, Kazbek, his promoter and manager, is just putting it all together now. Obviously he's a young, very exciting fighter who has a very bright future. So, I'm looking forward to having him back here. I think him training alongside Joe and Izu will make each guy better.
Yeah, it's good to have that camaraderie in the gym. Well, brilliant. Well, really lovely to talk to you, Kevin. Thank you so much for coming on the channel, and hopefully we can get you on again and as news develops.
Adam, I'm happy to come on anytime you'd like to hear from me.
All right, mate. Brilliant. Will you take...